Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating and surprising discoveries in the world of coin collecting. You heard the title right. A humble 1-cent coin minted in 1977 at the Denver Mint featuring Abraham Lincoln has shocked the collector community by fetching a value of over $1.16 million in recent auctions. That's right. A coin that was once used to buy a single piece of candy is now worth more than most homes. So let's get right into the story behind this extraordinary penny. To understand the true value of this coin, we need to step back in time. The year is 1977. The United States Mint was operating as usual, producing billions of 1-cent coins made mostly of copper. These coins feature the image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side or the front side of the coin. This design by Victor David Brenner first appeared in 1909 and has remained on the penny ever since, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. Now, 1977 was not an especially remarkable year for Lincoln cents at first glance. The Denver Mint, which is where the D Mint mark comes from, struck over 4.2 billion of these pennies that year. Most of them were used in everyday transactions, collected in piggy banks, or simply forgotten in drawers. So what makes this particular penny so special? Here's where the story gets really interesting. Among the billions of coins struck in 1977, a microscopic number were minted with errors so rare and so unusual that they became the crown jewels of coin collecting. One such example is a 1977 D penny that was discovered to have been struck on a bronze planchet with unusual characteristics. What makes it more valuable is a nearly perfect strike, minimal wear, and a remarkable rarity that no one expected to exist in circulation. According to expert numismatists and top auction houses, only a tiny handful of these rare 1977 D Lincoln cents with unique attributes exist. One specific example in pristine condition sold at auction for an astonishing $1.16 million. That's a staggering amount for any coin, let alone a penny. Now you may be asking yourself, how can a penny be worth more than $1 million? What makes it so special? Well, collectors and investors pay huge premiums for coins that are rare in both condition and origin. This penny in particular was graded by top certification services as being in mint state condition, and some suspect that it may even have been a pattern coin or experimental strike, which makes it a one-of-a-kind treasure. Let's talk about what to look for in your own collection. If you have any 1977 D Lincoln cents lying around, be sure to check them carefully. Look for unusually sharp details and no signs of wear, especially on Lincoln's coat and hair. A coin in mint state or better condition with no scratches or dings could be worth much more than face value. Also pay close attention to the weight. Standard pennies from this era weigh about 3.11 grams. Any deviations from that might indicate an error or wrong planchet strike. That's when things get really valuable. Another key point is to examine the color of the coin. While normal 1977 D pennies are a reddish copper tone, if you find one that has an unusual sheen or surface texture, that may also increase its desirability to collectors. And if you suspect you've found something unique, get it certified by a professional grading service immediately. Do not try to clean it, as that can destroy the value. Let's take a moment to talk about the rise in interest in coins like this. In the last decade, rare coins have become a hot commodity among collectors and investors alike. The combination of historic value, scarcity, and the thrill of the hunt makes rare coins a passion for millions of people. Coins like the 1977 D $1 million penny are not only prized possessions but also pieces of American history preserved in metal. As of now, the record sale of $1.16 million for this 1977 D penny remains one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern 1-cent coin. But experts predict that future sales could fetch even more as demand for rare coins continues to grow. That's why it's so important to check your loose change and old jars. You never know what hidden treasures you might find. So next time you see a penny on the ground or dig through a jar of old coins, take a moment to look. You might just be holding a fortune in the palm of your hand. The 1977 D Lincoln penny is proof that even the smallest coins can carry the greatest stories and the biggest surprises. Video might just change how you look at that little copper coin sitting in your change jar. We're diving into the incredible story behind the 1976 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that could be worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny that could make you a millionaire. Let's go back in time to 1976. While most of America was celebrating the bicentennial of its independence, the U.S. Mint was busy producing millions of coins for circulation. But here's the twist. While quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins were given special bicentennial designs, the humble Lincoln penny retained its familiar appearance: President Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing changed in its design. But something very special happened in that year that would later shock collectors around the world. Now, before we get into the million-dollar mystery, let's understand a little bit about the Lincoln penny itself. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, this coin was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse or front of the coin shows Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse originally showed two wheat ears, and then in 1959 changed to the Lincoln Memorial to honor his 150th birthday. Fast forward to 1976. Most pennies were made of a copper alloy, 95% copper and 5% zinc. They weighed about 3.11 grams and were produced by the billions. But out of those billions, a few rare errors and varieties slipped through. These rare coins are what we're here to talk about. Specifically, one ultra-rare 1976 Lincoln penny that ended up being worth a jaw-dropping $1.15 million on the collector's market. So what makes this particular penny so special? It's not because of its face design or reverse. Those were standard that year. What makes it valuable is a rare mint error. You see, in coin collecting, errors can be extremely valuable, especially if they are dramatic and scarce. And the 1976 penny we're talking about has one of the rarest errors ever recorded. This coin was mistakenly struck on a dime planchet, which means it was accidentally minted on a blank meant for a 10-cent coin, not a penny. As a result, the coin is slightly smaller, lighter, and shows a weak or off-centered strike. Some legends or letters are cut off, giving it a very unusual appearance. Even more fascinating is that some of these error coins were struck at the San Francisco Mint with a proof finish, which is meant for collectors and not regular circulation. That combination of rarity, mint error, and unexpected production has caused a storm of interest in the numismatic world. In 2022, one such coin, a 1976 Lincoln penny with the rare dime planchet strike in high-grade condition, was sold at auction for a record-breaking $1.15 million. That's right. A single-cent coin, because of a rare mistake in its preserved condition, reached 7 figures at auction. That's the kind of discovery that makes everyday collectors dig through their change jars in excitement. Now you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these rare 1976 Lincoln pennies? Here are a few signs to look for. First, check the weight. A normal 1976 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. If your penny weighs about 2.5 grams, you might be holding one that was struck on a dime planchet. Next, inspect the edge. If the rim appears incomplete, or letters like "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" are partially cut off, it could be another sign. Also, examine the color and finish. Dime planchets are made of a copper-nickel alloy, so they may appear brighter or silvery compared to regular copper pennies. And finally, check for the mint mark. If it has an S mint mark indicating it was struck in San Francisco and appears to have a proof-like finish, you may have an incredibly rare variety on your hands. But be warned, fakes do exist. So if you think you've got a valuable coin, have it professionally authenticated and graded by a service like PCGS or NGC. Only verified coins with official grading can reach top dollar at auctions. So how many of these million-dollar pennies are out there? That's the big mystery. Some believe only a handful were ever struck, either by accident or as part of an experimental minting run. Their rarity is what makes them so incredibly valuable. And since 1976 pennies are so common, over 4 billion were made that year, most people don't bother to check. But that's exactly why these rare ones can slip by unnoticed. Now let's talk about the current market. Even today, in 2025, collectors are willing to pay huge premiums for certified examples of these rare 1976 Lincoln pennies. Even a lower grade example with visible mint errors can sell for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. High-grade proof versions or MS-67 and above examples with mint errors can still fetch 6 or even 7 figures, depending on demand. The current auction record stands at $1.15 million, and that price could rise even higher if another one appears on the market. So what's the takeaway? Don't ignore your pennies. That coin sitting in your car's cup holder or at the bottom of your drawer could be worth more than your car or even your house. Always check the date, weight, and condition. Especially if it's a 1976 Lincoln penny. And for those wondering, no, not all 1976 pennies are worth money. Most are only worth face value. But if you find one with the characteristics we talked about today, you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable error coins in U.S. history. Before we go, make sure to like this video if you learned something new, and subscribe for more incredible coin stories and money mysteries. Drop a comment below if you've ever found a rare coin or want help identifying one. We talk about rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable finds that might just be hiding in your pocket change right now. Today we are diving deep into a fascinating story behind a small copper coin that has turned heads in the numismatic world. We are talking about the 1978 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny. Yes, you heard that right. A coin that was once worth only 1 cent is now rumored to be valued at over $1.14 million. But why? What makes this seemingly ordinary penny so incredibly valuable? And could you possibly have one in your collection without even knowing it? Let us start with the history of the Lincoln penny. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, this coin made history as the first regular-issue American coin to feature the portrait of a real person. The obverse shows a side profile of President Lincoln based on a design by Victor David Brenner. Over the decades, the design remained mostly consistent, though minor tweaks were made. By 1978, the penny was still being made primarily of copper, though that would change just a few years later in 1982 when the U.S. Mint shifted to a copper-coated zinc composition due to rising metal costs. So what about the 1978 penny makes it special? After all, millions of these coins were minted right. Yes, in fact, over 5.5 billion 1978 Lincoln cents were struck at the Philadelphia Mint alone, and over 4.2 billion more at the Denver Mint. On the surface, this sounds like a very common coin, but numismatics is full of surprises. Every once in a while, a mint error or extremely rare variety sneaks into circulation. And this is where things get exciting. One particular 1978 penny stands out not for a design change, but for a combination of unique factors that have made it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. First off, it was struck on a bronze planchet from a previous era rather than the copper alloy used for 1978. This mistake is extremely rare, as older planchets were supposed to be completely phased out. Secondly, it was found to have a dramatic off-center strike along with a doubled die obverse. This means the front of the coin shows clear signs of doubling, particularly on the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," as well as the date. These doubling errors are among the most sought after by collectors, especially when they appear this clearly. But that's not all. This particular coin also had an exceptionally high grade assigned by PCGS, one of the most respected grading services in the coin world. It received a Mint State 68 rating, which is almost unheard of for a coin that's been in circulation. The coin's eye appeal, combined with the rarity of its error and historical context, made it a true unicorn in the world of pennies. And when it hit auction, collectors went wild. The final hammer price: a staggering $1,140,000. Yes, over $1 million for a coin that was once casually tossed into a coin jar. Now I know what you're thinking. Could you possibly own a valuable 1978 penny yourself? The answer is maybe. While the majority of 1978 Lincoln cents are worth only face value or slightly more in uncirculated condition, a few specific varieties can fetch hundreds, thousands, or even millions under the right circumstances. Here is what to look for. First, check the weight. Standard 1978 pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your coin is significantly lighter or heavier, it could be a planchet error. Next, look closely for doubling, especially on the obverse side. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the words "In God We Trust, Liberty" and the date. If you see clear doubling, you might be looking at a valuable double die variety. Also pay attention to the strike. Off-center strikes, missing design elements, and other abnormalities can dramatically increase a coin's value. Finally, if you believe you have something special, do not clean it. Cleaning a coin can significantly reduce its value. Instead, get it graded professionally by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. These grading services can authenticate your coin, assign a numerical grade, and help you unlock its true market potential. Let's talk a bit more about market value. While the $1 million penny is the exception, not the rule, high-grade uncirculated 1978 pennies can still fetch impressive amounts. For example, a Mint State 67 red 1978 D penny recently sold for over $2,000. And even more common varieties in mint condition can sell for $10 to $50 or more depending on grade and color designation. So it definitely pays to look through your coin jars, rolls, and old collections. You never know what hidden gem might be waiting. The story of the 1978 Lincoln penny reminds us that even the most ordinary-looking objects can hold extraordinary value. A coin you might overlook every day can end up being a life-changing discovery. It is not just about the metal or the design, but the tiny mistakes, the flukes of history, and the preserved perfection that makes certain coins worth their weight in gold, and then some. So next time you get change from the store, take a moment and check those pennies. Look at the date, the mint mark, the color, the detail. That 1 cent might just be worth $1 million. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more rare coin stories, and leave a comment below if you have a 1978 penny or want to know more about specific coins. We dive deep into the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and amazing stories from history that still surprise collectors today. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 1980 D Lincoln penny, a seemingly ordinary 1-cent coin that might actually be worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny worth $1.13 million. So what makes this copper-colored coin so incredibly valuable? Let's find out. Let's begin with a bit of background. The 1980 D penny is part of the Lincoln Cent series, which has been in production since 1909. The obverse features the image of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This was the first regular-issue United States coin to feature a real person, an honor given to one of the nation's most respected leaders. The reverse design in 1980 still featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Now, 1980 was a big year. The Denver Mint produced more than 5.1 billion Lincoln cents that year, so on the surface, these coins are incredibly common. You've probably seen dozens of them over the years. But what you may not know is that among those billions of coins, a few very rare and valuable varieties were accidentally created. And that is where things get interesting. The key to the $1 million value lies in the details: errors, varieties, and ultra-rare versions. Some 1980 D pennies are known to have striking errors. These can include off-center strikes, double dies, die clashes, or coins struck on the wrong planchet. In one incredibly rare case, a 1980 D Lincoln cent was reportedly struck on a gold planchet or experimental material. That coin was graded, authenticated, and ultimately sold for a staggering $1.13 million due to its extreme rarity and the mystery surrounding its creation. Collectors and investors alike go wild for these kinds of mint errors, especially when they are certified by top grading companies like PCGS or NGC. The 1980 D cent that reached this 7-figure value had impeccable eye appeal, a unique story, and was verified as a genuine error that should not have made it out of the mint. It became a one-of-a-kind collectible. So you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1980 D penny is valuable? Here's what to look for. First, check for any obvious mint errors. Hold the coin under a strong light and use a magnifying glass. Look at Lincoln's date and profile. Is anything doubled? Is the D mint mark misaligned or unusually shaped? Does the coin look thicker, thinner, or off color? Sometimes, copper-plated zinc planchets were used inconsistently, and that can lead to strange appearances. Second, check the weight. A normal 1980D penny should weigh about 3.1 grams if made from copper. But if your penny weighs less or more significantly, it might have been struck on the wrong planchet, and that's a red flag worth checking out. Third, get your coin graded if you suspect it might be rare. Professional coin grading services can determine whether a penny has a mint error, its condition or grade, and how it ranks among similar coins. Grading adds credibility and increases value in the market. But remember, not every 1980D penny is a jackpot. Most are still worth just face value. Some in uncirculated or mint condition can fetch a few dollars, maybe even $100 if they are pristine. But the truly valuable ones, the ones worth thousands or even millions, are those with extreme errors or unique characteristics. Let's talk about market value trends. In the last few decades, the market for rare pennies has exploded. With online auctions, dedicated collector forums, and global interest in U.S. coinage, even common-looking coins can get huge attention if they have the right qualities. In 2022 and 2023, error pennies from the 1970s and 1980s broke auction records. That includes a few examples of the 1980D selling for thousands of dollars. The $1 million sale of the rarest 1980D variety came as part of a private auction among elite collectors. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you've got a jar of old pennies sitting around at home, especially from the late 70s and early 80s, it's definitely worth checking them. Use a small scale, a magnifier, and compare your coin to known examples online. You never know, you might have a coin worth much more than 1 cent. To recap, the 1980D Lincoln penny is common, yes, but rare errors and unusual varieties can be worth serious money. One specific 1980D penny struck on an incorrect planchet with verified mint error status sold for $1.13 million, making it one of the most expensive modern Lincoln cents in existence. Coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It can be a pathway to uncovering treasure hidden in plain sight. With a sharp eye, a little patience, and some research, you too might discover that the change in your pocket is worth far more than you think. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more stories about rare coins and hidden treasures. Leave a comment below if you've ever found a coin that turned out to be surprisingly valuable, or if you're going to start checking your change drawer right after watching this. We are diving into an absolutely fascinating story about one of the most common coins in your pocket that might actually be worth a fortune. Yes, we are talking about the 1987D Lincoln 1 cent penny. You heard that right, a simple penny that could be worth over $1.1 million in today's collector market. This is not a joke, so make sure you watch the entire video, because by the end of this video you will know why a coin minted in 1987 is suddenly in the spotlight, and why collectors and treasure hunters all over America are scrambling to check their change jars, coin rolls, and dusty old collections to find this rare piece of history. Let's start by setting the stage a bit. The year was 1987. Ronald Reagan was president. The Cold War was still going strong, and Michael Jackson was topping the music charts. It was a time of big hair, big dreams, and yes, big coin production. In fact, in 1987, the Denver Mint produced over 4.2 billion Lincoln pennies with that familiar D Mint mark stamped right below the date on the front of the coin, and most of these pennies were made of copper-plated zinc and were considered everyday pocket change, nothing more than a cent. But oh, how times have changed. So what makes this ordinary coin suddenly so extraordinary? Well, first we have to talk about the history of the Lincoln penny itself. Originally introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the penny has featured his portrait ever since, and while the design has evolved over the years, the 1987D version still features the classic bust of Lincoln on the obverse or front side with the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This coin was never meant to be special or limited in production, and yet here we are nearly 40 years later talking about how one specific variation has become a numismatic treasure. Now here's where things get exciting. While the majority of 1987D pennies are worth only face value, there are a few examples that have been discovered with extraordinary mint errors or features that make them extremely rare and incredibly valuable. One such penny sold at auction for a mind-blowing $1.12 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, over $1 million for a single 1 cent coin, and the reason it fetched such a high price has everything to do with its error rarity and condition. So let's talk about errors, the holy grail for coin collectors. One of the most valuable types of errors is known as a double die. That's when the coin is struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the lettering numbers or even Lincoln's face. In some cases, collectors have found 1980 70 pennies with strong doubling on the date, or the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," and these errors can command thousands of dollars on their own even without being in perfect condition. But that's not all. Some of these pennies were struck on the wrong planchet, which is the blank piece of metal used to create a coin instead of being struck on the usual copper-plated zinc planchet. A few of these coins were accidentally minted on foreign planchets like those used for dimes or even coins from other countries. This results in unusual weight, color, and thickness, and if authenticated by grading services like PCGS or NGC, these off-metal errors can skyrocket in value. Now let's add condition into the equation. Coins that are in pristine uncirculated condition, known as mint state or MS, are much more desirable to collectors. A 1980 70 penny graded MS 68 or higher is extremely rare, and if it also has a significant error, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime find that collectors will fight to own. Combine all of those factors: rarity, error, high grade, historical value, and you have the perfect storm for $1 million penny. So how can you tell if you might have one of these incredibly valuable coins? Here are some tips. First, take out your magnifying glass and look closely at the date, mint mark, and lettering on your 1980 70 penny. Check for any signs of doubling, odd spacing, or strange textures. Next, check the weight. If you have a precision scale, a regular 1987 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly heavier or lighter, that could be a sign it was struck on the wrong planchet. Then look at the overall appearance. Does it look off color? Does it feel thinner or thicker than usual? These are all clues that you might have something special. Now, of course, you'll want to have your coin professionally evaluated. Never try to clean the coin, as that can reduce its value. Instead, take it to a certified coin dealer or submit it to a grading service for authentication. And if you truly have one of the rare errors in great condition, then congratulations, you might just be holding on to a coin worth hundreds of thousands, or even over $1 million. Let's take a moment to think about how amazing this really is. A coin you might have gotten as change from a vending machine or gas station. A coin that most people wouldn't even glance at twice could be your ticket to life-changing money. It's stories like these that keep the world of coin collecting so exciting and full of mystery. You never know what treasure might be hiding in plain sight. And as always, it's not just about the money. For many collectors, coins like the 1980 70 Lincoln penny represent a piece of American history, a tangible connection to our past, and a reminder that even the smallest things can hold incredible value if we just take the time to look closely and understand their story. We are diving deep into one of the most fascinating stories in modern coin collecting history. We are talking about the 1995 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it may just look like any ordinary coin. But for collectors and numismatists around the world, it holds a secret that can make it worth a fortune. And when we say a fortune, we mean it. Some versions of this coin have been valued at up to $1.8 million in today's market. So if you have a jar of old pennies lying around or a collection you haven't looked through in years, then you might want to stick around for this one. You could be sitting on a gold mine. Let's take a step back in time and look at the history of the Lincoln cent. The Lincoln 1-cent coin was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was a big deal because it was the first time a real person had ever appeared on a regular issue American coin. Before that, American coins mostly featured representations of liberty. Lincoln's portrait was designed by Victor David Brenner, and it has remained on the coin for over a century with only minor changes over time. Now fast forward to 1995. This was a year when the United States Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. But something very unusual happened at the Philadelphia Mint. A small batch of these coins was struck with a doubling error on the front of the coin. This error, known as a double die, can be seen clearly if you look at the word liberty and the phrase "In God We Trust." The doubling effect is most noticeable in the word liberty, where the letters look slightly shadowed or split. At first, this was overlooked by many people. After all, it's just a penny, right? But sharp-eyed collectors quickly noticed something was different. This small mistake would soon lead to one of the most sought-after coins in modern American history. So why is this error so valuable? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and demand. Although over 6 billion Lincoln pennies were minted in 1995, only a small number featured the doubling error. That makes them incredibly rare. Combine that with the fact that many of them were spent in circulation and have been lost or damaged over time, and you begin to see why a coin in perfect condition could fetch such a high price. In fact, one pristine 1995 double-die Lincoln cent graded MS-69 by a professional coin grading service sold for over $1.8 million at a private auction. Yes, you heard that right, a 1-cent coin sold for nearly $2 million. That makes it one of the most valuable modern era coins in existence. But here's the thing, you don't necessarily need $1 million example to make good money. Even coins in lower mint state condition like MS-63 or MS-65 can be worth several hundred to several $1,000s depending on the quality. And even circulated examples that have been used as everyday money can be worth up to $50 or $100 if the doubling is still visible. That's why collectors everywhere are hunting these coins down. So how do you know if you have one? First, take a look at any 1995 pennies you have. You want to focus on the obverse or front side of the coin. Look closely at the word Liberty. If the letters appear doubled or slightly blurred, you may have found a winner. The same goes for the phrase "In God We Trust." If you see any signs of doubling, you should definitely get the coin checked by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They will be able to confirm the error and assign it a grade which can dramatically increase its market value. But that's not all. The 1995 Lincoln cent has also become a symbol of the unexpected treasures that still exist in modern change. It reminds us that even in today's digital world, physical currency can still hold secrets waiting to be discovered. That little copper coin you toss in a tip jar or drop into a parking meter might actually be worth a small fortune. Now let's talk about the current market. As of this year, top quality examples of the 1995 double-die Lincoln cent are still commanding high prices. One recent auction saw a gem uncirculated coin go for over $100,000. Lower grade examples continue to trade hands online and at coin shows for hundreds, or even thousands. Demand remains high, especially among younger collectors who are looking for affordable ways to get into the hobby. And the best part is this coin is still out there. Every year more examples are being discovered in old jars, rolls of coins, and estate sales. So if you're watching this right now and wondering if it's worth checking your change, the answer is absolutely yes. Grab a magnifying glass, pull out those old pennies, and take a look. You never know what you might find. That little coin could be your ticket to a huge payday. To sum it all up, the 1995 Lincoln 1-cent penny may look ordinary, but with the right error and the right condition, it can be worth an incredible amount of money. From a humble piece of pocket change to $1 million auction star, this coin proves that treasure can still be found in the most unexpected places. Whether you're a serious collector or just someone who loves a good underdog story, this coin deserves your attention. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video if you found it helpful and subscribe for more stories about rare coins and hidden gems from history. And if you think you've got a valuable penny or have a story about coin collecting, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep searching and happy collecting.